Chapter 9. The killers who attacked our camp were rebels from Burundi, and they did not want us there. We were outsiders again. On that night, I thought my life was over. My mother and sister had been gunned down. I'd blacked out from fear, then tried to flee, only to find a gun pointed at my head. I don't know why the gunman didn't shoot me on the spot. Perhaps he didn't want to waste a precious bullet on a little girl. I was just a girl after all, so how could I possibly survive? I imagine this is what he was thinking. In that moment, with the gun to my head, people rushed all around us in a fiery blur, shooting, fleeing, screaming. It must have been just a second or two that I stood there, expecting to die, but it felt like an eternity. The man, the gun, and me, in my red shorts and khaki tank top, frozen in time. I closed my eyes, no way out. There was no time to think, anyway. I suppose in that instant, I felt more peace than panic. It was all beyond my control. Then, in a flash amid the chaos, somehow I got kicked to the ground. The gunman went chasing after someone else. Fate had given me another chance. I got up and fled. I stumbled. I fell. I ran. Around me, people were burning, crying in pain, dying. Those who still had legs were scrambling in all directions, running for their lives. I tumbled into a ditch that served as a garbage dump for the camp. I waded through the trash and sludge and kept moving forward. I had no idea where I was going. I just ran. I made it to the fields of a nearby farm. I could hear people talking in the dark. I went to hide behind a tree, but I was not alone. A woman was there, and I tensed up. I didn't know if she was one of my people. "Where are your parents?" she asked me. She was one of us. "I think my mom is dead," I said. She took me by the hand, and we wandered through the bumpy fields in the dark, passing the haunted faces of survivors. I spotted my uncle Ezekiel, and he said to me, "Why aren't you with your mother?" "I think she died," I said. "No," he said, "I saw her. She's not dead." "But I saw her die," I said, confused. "She was shot." No, he said, "she's alive." I didn't know what to think. I couldn't tell what was real. Ezekiel joined us and we searched for my mother, tapping women on the shoulder as they sat hunched over on the ground or stood in the stunned silence. I desperately wanted Mom to be alive. I prayed that Ezekiel was right. The thought of continuing my life without my mother was too much to bear. She was my strength, my inspiration. With her, I felt safe and loved. Who would take care of me if she died? "I'm not her," each woman said, turning to look at me with vacant eyes. "I'm not her. I'm not her." We kept tapping women on the shoulder. I thought Ezekiel must have been mistaken. Perhaps he had simply seen someone who looked like my mother. Why was he insisting that she was alive, taking me on this search and breaking my heart all over again? And then, like an image from a dream, Mom appeared before me. She was standing by herself, wrapped in a sheet and very alone. She looked as if her world had ended. I had never seen my mom look like that, not even when my uncle Remenge had died years earlier. I couldn't believe it was her. Is that you?" she asked me, studying my face as if she couldn't believe I was real either. We hugged each other hard, but I couldn't trust my eyes or my arms. Was it really her? I kept feeling her, touching her body, her hands, her arms, up and down, again and again. I hit her on the arm to make sure she was not an apparition. "I'm fine," she said. "Don't worry." But she was not fine. I could see a gaping hole in her side from the gunfire. She was bleeding, shivering in pain. I held on to her, clinging to her gently but firmly at the same time. "Are you hurt?" she asked me. And then a realization swept through my body as if I had been torn apart by bullets myself. My mother was not with Deborah. My little sister had been clinging to my mom during the attack, never leaving her side. The last time I saw Deborah, she was holding tight to my mother's side. And then there were the sparks of gunfire. I looked Mom in the eyes, searching, and she looked back. She knew what I was thinking, and I could see the truth in her eyes. I sobbed. I couldn't imagine the world without Deborah in it. My beautiful little sister, my soulful young friend who thought I could do no wrong. Deborah died in the clothes she wore to bed that night, including my hand-me-down soccer jersey that she loved. The jersey had always been my favorite, a blue Brazil jersey with the number 9 on the back. When it was mine, I made my mom wash it constantly so I could wear as much as possible. It had become Deborah's favorite, too. Now she would never wear my clothes again. She would not grow up with me. I'm sorry, my mother said, holding me close. I'm so sorry. She told me they were all gone. Deborah, my aunt, my 2 cousins, who had held Mom's hand as they marched from the tent to their death, lured by the men who promised to help them. She thought I had been killed too. Mom had been left for dead in a pile of bleeding bodies. Deborah had been shot in the head, but she survived long enough to say the heartbreaking words to my mom, "Hold me." My mother managed to hold Deborah on her chest as my little sister died. Something a mother should never have to do. Mom, covered in blood, heard the attackers talk about torching the pile of bodies she lay in, and she managed to remove the bodies on top of her and quietly crawl away. She decided she would rather be shot dead trying to escape than be burned alive. But my brave and resilient mom did escape. She headed for the farm, following other people who were fleeing, and falling into the same garbage ditch that I did along the way. Mom did not know if my father or Alex had survived. She thought not, but she said she had seen Heritage and then lost sight of him. And so we set out to find Heritage together, weaving through the lost souls in the night. Exhausted and overwhelmed, we didn't say much to each other. I tried to keep my thoughts focused on finding Heritage, not to think about Dad and Alex since we knew nothing of their fate. I could not bear to think about what might have happened to them. Just hours ago, we had all been drifting off to sleep, and now our lives, our families, our people were torn apart. As we scoured the farm, people were weeping for lost children, whimpering in pain, or sitting silently, staring at nothing. The air smelled of dewy grass, damp soil, sweat, and death. Dawn was coming soon. People who lived in cozy homes on the outskirts of the farm were waking up, turning on their lights, unaware of the bloody massacre that had taken place across the field that night, turning our camp into a fiery hell. At that point, there were no policemen, no officials, no one to help us, just my butchered tribe. I wondered if I would ever see my father and Alex again. Sorry about that little disruption at the very end. That would be my cat.